Hi, I'm Kylie. My parents threw a $50,000 red carpet gala for my sister's birthday. Champagne fountains, paparazzi backdrop, designer gowns. Me? I found out from Instagram. I wasn't even invited. But that wasn't the worst part. It was the quiet erasure. How they rewrote family history, turned my childhood bedroom into a gym, forged my signature to cut me from the will, and when I finally spoke up, they called me dramatic. What happens when your own family decides you're the problem? Simply because you stop disappearing? I was in bed, barely awake, when the first image hit my phone. Laureen, my younger sister, draped in a gold sequin dress, standing beneath a giant balloon arch that read, 30 and thriving. Her makeup was professionally done, hair curled just right. The caption read, "Celebrating our golden girl in golden style." I blinked once, then again. It wasn't the dress. It wasn't the custom backdrop or the champagne towers or the polished caption my mom had clearly crafted. It was the fact that I had no idea it was happening. None. Not a single word had been said to me. As I scrolled through the tagged photos, it got worse. Red carpet, string quartet, gourmet catering, a full photo booth with customized props. My mother clinked flutes with Laureen in one clip and laughed like she hadn't ignored 3 of my texts the week before. The caption underneath one post read, "Some daughters deserve the world." I didn't like it. I didn't comment. I didn't even send it to anyone. I just watched the clips again and again, my stomach tightening. I wanted to be unaffected. I wanted to be above it. But there was no version of this that didn't sting. It wasn't the gala itself. It was the message beneath it. You were never even considered. That night, I tried to sleep, but the images looped in my head like a reel that wouldn't shut off. Every time I blinked, it was Laureen laughing over fondue with my parents, her champagne flute raised high. "To being unforgettable," she toasted in one video. The word unforgettable hung in my brain like a mosquito I couldn't swat. 2 weeks later, it was my birthday. I didn't expect much. Still, I cleared the day, didn't plan anything with friends, didn't schedule any meetings. I guess a part of me was hoping they had something up their sleeve, even just dinner or a thoughtful note. At noon, my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "If you're free, stop by the house today." That was it. No happy birthday, no emoji, no hint of celebration, just logistics. I showed up around 2:30 p.m., half hoping there was a surprise hiding behind the garage door. But when I walked in, Laureen was on the couch scrolling through her phone, legs tucked under her like it was any other Thursday. My dad was out back mowing the lawn. My mom was in the kitchen humming. "Oh, hey," she said when she saw me. "You made it." "I figured you wanted me to," I replied, standing awkwardly in the doorway. She nodded, wiped her hands on a dish towel, and opened the fridge. "I picked up a cupcake for you," she said, placing a single chocolate cupcake on the counter. Store-bought, still in the plastic container, no candle. Then she handed me a card, white envelope, already opened. Inside was a thick piece of cardstock that read in shiny gold letters, "Maybe next year." There was no message, not even her signature. I gave a soft laugh, not from humor but disbelief. "That's it?" My mom looked at me like I'd insulted her cooking. "You're 33, Kylie. What did you expect? A pony and streamers? You've always been so dramatic." Laureen didn't even look up from her phone. I stood there, card limp in my hand, and for the first time I felt something solid crack inside me. Not a dramatic collapse, more like the final click in a long sequence of quiet betrayals. Something irreversible. It wasn't the cupcake. It wasn't even the card. It was the fact that they looked at me like I was the problem, for noticing. My mother leaned back against the counter. "You've never liked attention anyway. I didn't think it mattered." I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her how she could host a $50,000 event with a dress code and media wall for my sister, then hand me a $2 cupcake and act like I was the difficult one. But I didn't scream. I didn't explain. I just said, "Thanks," and I left. Not angrily, not loudly, just quietly, like a door closing with a soft click that no one hears until it's too late. I got into my car. My hands shook a little as I placed the cupcake on the passenger seat. Then I opened my travel app and booked a flight to Lisbon. One way. I'd been saving for a trip for years, waiting for a sign. That moment, cupcake sweating in the Louisiana heat, was the clearest one I'd ever gotten. That night I packed. I folded clothes into neat stacks, zipped them into my suitcase like I'd done it 100 times. My phone buzzed once, my dad, probably asking where I'd gone. I let it ring. I didn't need another text explaining how I was taking things too personally. I didn't need my sister's smug silence or my mother's defensiveness. What I needed was distance, and Lisbon was about as far as I could go without orbiting the planet. Before I went to bed, I placed the cupcake in the trash and lit a candle, not for celebration, but for clarity. I didn't sleep much, but when the sun rose, casting light across my bedroom floor, I felt weightless, not happy, not healed, but finally light. The Lisbon sun had barely begun to rise when I found myself sitting upright in seat 34A, the gentle hum of the plane doing little to soothe the churn in my chest. The cabin lights were dimmed, passengers around me lulled into sleep or distracted by glowing screens. I, on the other hand, was staring at the screen of my phone, one bar of Wi-Fi flickering like it couldn't decide if it wanted to connect me to the world or leave me in peace. That's when I saw it. A flagged message from 2018 sat at the top of my inbox like it had been waiting for this exact moment. The subject line read, "Save this." I vaguely remembered sending it to myself but couldn't recall what it was. I tapped. One line appeared above a small attachment. "Never forget this recording, one day it'll explain everything." I hesitated, then slid my headphones on and hit play. The voice was unmistakable, my mother's, casual, confident, unaware she was being recorded. "She'll never be like Lorene," she said, her tone light, as if discussing the weather. "Kylie's always been forgettable, sensitive. She takes things so personally." There was a pause, then laughter, not just hers, but a second voice, a family friend. "Well, you need one stable daughter and one star, right?" he joked. My mother responded without skipping a beat. "Exactly. Lorene was born to shine. Kylie was born to hold the flashlight." I didn't feel anger. Not at first. Just silence. Heavy, deep, and devastating. I looked out the window, the early light casting gold across the clouds as we cruised above the Atlantic. I didn't cry. I didn't even move. But inside, something split. Not a clean break. More like the slow, quiet peel of wallpaper left too long under damp air. That recording wasn't a surprise. Not really. It was confirmation. A voice memo for the parts of me that still questioned my own pain. When the plane landed, I barely noticed the bump of wheels against tarmac. The air in Lisbon was cool and smelled faintly of sea and pastry. The taxi driver smiled and asked where I was from. I said, "Louisiana," but it felt like I was talking about another life. The hotel was tucked between two pink buildings, paint peeling just enough to give it charm. My room had a tiny balcony and creaky floors. I set my suitcase down, exhaled, and for a second almost believed I was starting fresh. But then I opened the folder of mail my neighbor had forwarded, the stack I almost left behind. Most were boring, catalogs, utility letters, junk. But one thick envelope stood out, cream cardstock, embossed, a return address I knew too well. I opened it slowly. My hands weren't shaking, they were just tired. It was an invitation, a formal one. "You are cordially invited to celebrate Lorene's 30th birthday gala, dated 5 weeks ago, sent to my old apartment." I hadn't lived there in over a year. I checked the postmark. Sent 10 days after I'd texted my mother my updated address. Sent 10 days after I watched her read it, blue check and all. I stared at the envelope for a long time, then finally typed a message to her. "Did you send this to my old place on purpose?" No reply. A few minutes later, I remembered something. Weeks ago, Lorene had come across my updated contact info while scrolling through the family spreadsheet on her laptop during a holiday planning call. I remembered the way she had paused and smirked. "Oh, you moved?" she'd said, not bothering to look up. Didn't seem important. It wasn't an oversight. It was a strategy. That night, I unpacked slowly. The soft rustle of clothing hitting drawers was the only sound in the room. Lisbon lit up outside my window, but I didn't step out. I sat at the desk and opened my journal, wrote 2 sentences. "This was never about forgetting me. It was about erasing me. quietly, efficiently. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I called my father. He picked up on the third ring. "Kylie," he said, sounding tired, like the call itself was a burden. "You're in Portugal?" "Yes." There was silence on the line, then he added, "Look, don't stir things up. What's done is done. Let it go. Let it go." I imagined saying that to someone who'd been bruised slowly, consistently, carefully, without ever being hit. But I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just ended the call. I walked out to the balcony. The night was mild. Somewhere in the distance, a woman was singing in Portuguese, soft and soulful. I looked up at the stars and said quietly, to no one in particular, "No, it just started." The next morning in Lisbon, I opened my laptop to check email before heading downstairs for breakfast. I wasn't expecting anything urgent. Maybe a receipt, a newsletter I'd forgotten to unsubscribe from. But one subject line stopped me cold. "Urgent, Kylie. Please confirm you're safe." It was from my company's HR department. I blinked. My coffee cooled beside me, untouched. I opened the message. "Hi, Kylie. We received a call yesterday from someone identifying as your mother. She expressed concern that you had left suddenly and might be in danger. She insisted it was an emergency and said we should let you know the family was worried. Please confirm all is well." I stared at the screen, jaw locked. I hadn't given her my work contact. She had no reason, no right. That was a boundary I'd never expected her to cross. I clicked over to my voicemail, and sure enough, her voice filled my ears, familiar, polished, and sharp beneath the surface. "Hi, honey. Just calling because you can't just vanish like this. You scared your father. You scared Lorene. It's not fair to us. I called your office because you didn't respond to me. You can't expect people not to worry when you make choices like this." Choices like this. As if protecting my peace was a crime against family unity. I didn't call her back. Instead, I opened my social media apps, already dreading what I'd find. My instincts were right. On Lorene's Gala post, still public, still glowing, there was a comment from Megan, an old friend from high school. "Where was Kylie? She's always been so delicate." Delicate. Right below that, Megan had replied to someone else. "Lorene's always been more outgoing, more presentable." I stared at those words like they were a painting meant to be studied. Then I clicked the 3 dots, scrolled, and deactivated my Facebook. Later that afternoon, as the Lisbon streets pulsed with sun, I received a short email from Janelle, a journalist I used to intern with years ago. "Hey, off the record, there's chatter. Your family's telling people you ghosted them. If you want to clarify anything publicly, I'll help you do it right." So the narrative had already begun, without me. The story wasn't just about what I did, it was about who got to say why I did it. That evening, I sat by the hotel window, trying to write. I couldn't. My thoughts kept circling back to home, or what used to be home. Then my phone buzzed, a message from Brenda, my cousin. Just a photo, no caption. I tapped to enlarge it. My old bedroom, except it wasn't mine anymore. The lavender walls were now gray. My bookshelf had been cleared, my desk gone. A treadmill stood in its place, flanked by 2 sets of dumbbells. On the wall, right where I once taped up quotes from Maya Angelou and post-it notes filled with college vocabulary, was a shiny new decal. "Progress begins when we stop clinging to the past." I swallowed hard. That room had been more than walls and furniture. It was the space where I taught myself how to file taxes, where I stayed up through heartbreak, where I rewrote my resume after getting laid off. It was the only place in that house where I ever felt remotely mine. And now, just like that, it was wiped clean, not converted, not repurposed, erased. I typed out a message to my mother. I saw the room, message received, but I didn't send it. I deleted it. What would be the point? She wouldn't see what I needed her to see. Instead, I opened my journal. They don't want me to call, they want me to crawl. That line echoed in my mind longer than I expected. So I opened another file on my computer, one I'd created months ago and never touched. It was called Lisbon Notes. Inside was a blank document. No formatting, no title page. Just a single line of text I'd written long ago but never expanded. This isn't the story they told. It's the one they tried to bury. That night, I began outlining chapters. Not out of revenge, not to embarrass them, but because stories rot in silence, and mine had been sitting in the dark long enough. The next morning arrived quiet and pale, the Lisbon sky hanging low with a slow-moving fog. I had barely touched my coffee when an email slid into my inbox from Paula, an editor friend I'd worked with back in New York. Her subject line read, "Hey, are you okay?" Inside, just a few lines. "I don't want to step on anything private, but I've heard you're overseas dealing with some kind of breakdown." 2 emails came through quoting your sister. Very polished, very concerned. Something about you being unwell and acting impulsively. If this is sabotage, say the word. Sabotage. That word sat differently now. Heavier, sharper. I minimized the email and pulled up Instagram. Loreen's newest post had blown up overnight. Thousands of likes, hundreds of comments. The caption read, "Family isn't about who vanishes when things get hard. It's about who stays and helps rebuild." In the photo, she was hugging my mother, both wearing soft pastels, glowing under perfect lighting. Behind them, I noticed something subtle but searing. My diploma, which had once hung on the wall near the staircase, was gone. I didn't cry, but something inside me tightened, like laces pulling through too many eyelets. I felt cinched in my own body, like they were tightening the version of the story they wanted people to believe. I closed the app and tossed my phone onto the bed, trying to breathe. But minutes later, curiosity pulled me back. I opened TikTok and typed in her name. The first thing that came up was a video with over 60,000 views. Loreen sat at a white vanity, blending foundation, hair in rollers, smiling at her reflection as upbeat music played in the background. Then she spoke. "You know," she said, laughing softly, "when your sibling can't even handle a cupcake without spiraling, it might be time they ask if they're really grown." The comments scrolled faster than I could read. "Drag her, sis." "She's so dramatic, LOL." "Girl, you're better off without that energy." I watched it again. The clip was clearly trimmed, designed to provoke, to feed the algorithm, to hand the audience something digestible. Never mind that it rewrote everything I'd been through in one glib swipe. My story was now a meme. That afternoon, I tried to work. I returned emails. I edited a piece for a Lisbon food blog about the city's best hidden cafes, but the sentences ran together, the images blurred. Everything I typed felt dishonest, like pretending to be focused while your house is on fire. That evening, I checked the email thread with a Portuguese publisher I'd been corresponding with. They'd loved the idea of Lisbon notes, but something had shifted. Their latest reply was clipped. "At this moment, we are unable to proceed due to concerns about potential defamation. We've received 2 messages from a Gmail account warning of legal consequences should we publish." I froze. I asked to see the warnings. They forwarded one. It was brief, anonymous, but familiar. "This story is a violation of privacy. The family does not consent. Proceeding could result in legal action." The recovery phone number on the Gmail account ended in 216. That was a Louisiana area code. I knew exactly who it belonged to. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone. Instead, I opened a blank Word document and titled it, "A Family's Favorite Lie." Then I wrote, "When you stay silent too long, someone else starts telling your story for you." I didn't rage post. I didn't drag anyone. I didn't at my sister. Instead, I opened Instagram, uploaded a photo of my Lisbon apartment bathed in morning light, and added a caption. No tags, no hashtags, just words. I didn't run. I chose peace. And peace sometimes means walking away from noise disguised as love. It wasn't emotional. It was measured, surgical, like someone setting a bone after too many years of it healing wrong. Within an hour, the likes rolled in. Comments followed, some from old friends, some from strangers, some from people I hadn't heard from in years. Finally, someone said it. "I feel this in my bones." "Thank you for this." I didn't respond. I just read, and let the truth sit there. For years, I kept my voice boxed in, afraid to upset anyone, afraid to be called too much, too sensitive, too dramatic. Now they couldn't shut it off. By the time the sun dipped low over the tiled rooftops of Lisbon, my post had taken on a life of its own. I wasn't refreshing the screen obsessively, but the notifications came like waves, rolling in without pause. A few were cruel, predictable. But most, they were something else. Something I hadn't expected. Brenda messaged me first. "Finally, you said it." She followed it up with a screenshot of a Facebook comment thread already spiraling into a debate about whether I had snapped or spoken up. Then came an email from my old high school English teacher, Mr. Platt. We hadn't spoken since I graduated, but he wrote, "I always wondered why your parents never came to open house. You were the top of the class, Kylie. I'm glad you're finding your voice." More messages followed, college classmates, distant cousins. One from a coworker in New York who simply wrote, "That post. Phew, respect." I didn't reply to any of them. I wasn't here to win a popularity contest. This wasn't about applause. I had nothing to prove anymore, not to anyone. The version of me that needed validation had been boxed up with the cupcake I left behind. Later that evening, Brenda messaged again. "I need to show you something." She sent me a video file. It started shaky, handheld, probably filmed on a phone by someone who wasn't supposed to be recording. The scene, the night before the gala, Lorene in a glittering robe, sipping from a wine glass while fussing with a seating chart. She looked up at our mom and said, casual as ever, "Let's just not invite Kylie. She throws off the vibe." Our mom didn't hesitate. She laughed, an easy, practiced laugh, and answered, "She wouldn't come anyway. She doesn't belong in pictures like these." I paused the video. I stared at the screen so long it dimmed and went dark. My reflection blinked back at me, blank but boiling just beneath the skin. Brenda's message pinged right after. Should I leak it? I didn't hesitate. Already did. I posted it to my Instagram story. No caption, no context, just the truth, playing out in grainy pixels for anyone who ever doubted. An hour later, the email started again. This time, one stood out. Formal, cold, a legal notice. "This is a courtesy notice regarding your possible defamation of character. Our client is prepared to take legal action should the false and defamatory statements continue." Attached was a PDF, a document that claimed I had willingly forfeited my right to any family inheritance. It even had a signature at the bottom, my name scrawled in a shaky hand that didn't resemble mine at all. I leaned back in my chair, letting the absurdity of it settle. They weren't just offended now. They were threatened. And when people like them feel threatened, they try to intimidate. But they forgot something. I don't scare easy anymore. I called the law firm directly. The receptionist hesitated when I gave my name, then transferred me to a junior associate. He sounded younger than me, nervous. "Hi, this is Kylie. Yes, the one you emailed. I'm just calling to let you know that you can't defame someone by quoting them directly. That video? It's not commentary, it's evidence." He stammered, tried to redirect, but I didn't give him room. "Also," I added, "the signature on that form? Fake. I'll be sending a scanned copy of my actual signature for comparison. Don't send me threats again. Send me apologies." I hung up, took a deep breath, and opened my laptop. I sent the real signature to the firm. Then I called Daniela, a lawyer friend I'd met here in Lisbon. She used to practice family law in Boston. I told her everything. Every twist, every lie, every legal move they were trying to make. She listened without interrupting. Then she said, "This isn't about legality. It's about control. Let's take that from them." That night, I posted again. This time, not just a photo, not just a caption, but a quote from my own journal. "If defending myself ruins your lies, maybe you should have built them better." I hit post. Then I turned off my phone and poured myself a glass of red wine. I wasn't burning bridges. I was building walls, strong, necessary, and finally mine. By morning, the air in my Lisbon apartment was thick with a strange kind of quiet. Not peaceful, not tense, just charged, like a storm was circling, deciding where to land. I poured coffee with a steady hand but a racing mind. I'd drawn a line, and for the first time in years, I hadn't erased it. By noon, the ripple effects had found their way back to me. Brenda forwarded a screenshot of a Facebook post from my cousin Deanna, the kind who posts inspirational quotes between gossip-laced rants. Some people air their trauma when they could have just handled it privately. There's always two sides. Below it, Aunt Lydia commented with a Bible verse about forgiveness. Classic. But what stopped me wasn't them. It was another message from my cousin Alex, the one who used to share a Nintendo with me during summer visits. We always knew something was off. We just didn't say anything. I'm sorry. I didn't know how to reply to that, so I didn't. I just screenshotted everything, like I was preserving pieces of a puzzle someone had tried to scatter. By early evening, I had just returned from a short walk by the Alfama district when a voice memo landed in my inbox. The sender, Aunt Cynthia, my mom's younger sister. We hadn't spoken in years. Her voice cracked a little but stayed firm. I've been quiet too long. Lorene's in control of the family accounts now. Your mom let her take over everything after your dad's surgery last fall. I don't agree with it, but I didn't know how to speak up. Attached were images, screenshots of account logins, money transfers, one to Lorene labeled Birthday Coordination Event Vendor, another titled Business Fund Withdrawal L Permission Given. The amounts weren't small. It hit me like a cold slap. They hadn't just rewritten me emotionally, they'd erased me financially too, quietly, systematically, like I'd never mattered. That night, I found myself Googling my own name just to see what the world had turned me into. What I saw made my stomach twist. A Reddit thread. Anyone else know Kylie from Baton Rouge? Weird story. TikTok's using my name as a trending hashtag. #Cupcake Girl Gone Rogue. Mental breakdown or main character moment. And a YouTube video, 30,000 views and climbing. She ran off and played victim? My face was the thumbnail. My name in bold. My story twisted into someone else's spectacle. I didn't cry, but the grief showed up in other ways. Tight shoulders, clenched jaw, a hollow ache in my ribs. The final gut punch came from a call I'd been expecting but hoping to avoid. Kylie, Paula, my Lisbon publisher, said gently, "We're getting emails, concerned inquiries, people asking if this memoir is revenge disguised as art. Is it safe for us to move forward?" I sat down at the window, the street below glowing orange in the setting sun. "It's not revenge," I said. "It's reclamation." Silence on the other end. Then Paula said, "Then let's publish it. In your name. No ghosts, no filters." The next morning, I met Paula in person for the first time since this all began. She brought her laptop. I brought the screenshots from Aunt Cynthia and a small USB with every legal document they'd tried to use against me. We ordered coffee and didn't speak about feelings, just facts. By noon, we had a plan. By dusk, I uploaded something new. A simple post. A cover mock-up of my memoir, the title in white serif against a deep maroon background. The subtitle, What They Buried. And beneath it, a quote. "Sometimes survival looks like silence. Other times it looks like print." I turned off comments this time. I wasn't inviting debate. I was issuing a declaration. They took my name. Now I was putting it back where it belonged. On the cover. The day after I announced the book cover, I sat by the window with my coffee, Lisbon still asleep outside. My inbox had quieted for the first time in weeks. It was the kind of silence that didn't feel like an absence, but a pause before the next move. And it came, not from a critic or troll, but from the one person who always knew how to hit the bruise and still pretend they hadn't touched me at all. Lorene's message popped up on my phone mid-sip. No greeting, no context. Just, "Hope the attention was worth it. We're dealing with the fallout now. Good job." Attached was a screenshot. Our mother in tears, caught mid-sob, posted by our cousin Rachel. Her caption read, "This is what public shaming does to families. Pray for us." I stared at it for a full minute, then whispered, "You posted her crying. I lived her silence." I didn't reply. I didn't owe her my energy. Later that day, Brenda forwarded me a screenshot from a group family text thread I hadn't known still existed. The kind they all use to share prayer requests and potluck reminders. This one said, "We're praying for Kylie to come back home. She's not well. Something's wrong." My name was being used like a missing person report. At the same time, Paula called. "The contract's finalized," she said. "We're locked in. Launch is set for spring." I exhaled, but Paula didn't stop there. "We'll need an excerpt to release. Something that's not just strong, but quiet. Dangerous. Something no one can twist." I knew what she meant. I just didn't know if I was ready. And then Brenda sent me something I didn't expect. A photo of a folded piece of paper. Torn edges. crumpled slightly, written in loopy teenage handwriting. "I found this in the attic. You must have written it before college." It was a letter. My letter. One I didn't remember writing but couldn't deny was mine, addressed to no one, just words poured out at 15. "I'm sorry I'm not like Lorene. I don't know how to sparkle. I just want someone to ask me how I feel before telling me who I am." It gutted me. That night, I took the paper with me to the studio where I'd been recording the audiobook version of the memoir. Paula met me there. She sat behind the glass, headphones on, while I stood at the mic with the letter in my hand. I cleared my throat and began to read. By the second paragraph, my voice cracked. I paused. Paula didn't say a word. I kept reading. "And if I ever leave, I don't want anyone to ask why. I want someone to remember I was here. That I tried." I ended the session without any edits. No filters, no re-records, just the raw sound of a girl who had been begging, for years, to be seen. The next morning, I posted the excerpt on Instagram. No dramatic intro, no hashtags, just a still image of the letter and a caption. "This isn't revenge. This is a record." The reaction was immediate. Some people apologized. Some got defensive. Some blamed me for airing family pain like dirty laundry. Lorene, of course, responded. Another vague story post with a soft filter, mascara-streaked cheeks, and a Bible verse about betrayal. The comments flooded in. "You're the strong one. Family is complicated, we see you. Protect your peace, queen." But this time, something shifted. Brenda texted. Even Aunt Sylvia said, "I think Kylie was right." That's new. I didn't celebrate. I didn't screenshot. I didn't react. I just sat in the moment, equal parts anger and relief. It wasn't vindication I wanted. It was accuracy. This time, I wasn't the one telling the story alone. They were finally listening. The morning sunlight spilled into my Lisbon apartment like nothing had happened. But the internet said otherwise. I was sipping coffee when I got the notification. A YouTube link, sent by 3 different people, all with the same subject line. "Have you seen this?" The video title hit me like a slap. "Kylie lied. The victim's story debunked." The thumbnail was a freeze frame of me blinking during an old interview, mouth slightly open, caught mid-thought. The kind of image people use when they want you to look foolish without saying a word. I clicked. A man's voice narrated over grainy clips pulled from my social media, spliced together to make me look unhinged. "She ran off to Europe because she couldn't handle her family calling her out," he said. The footage shifted to a poorly cropped screen recording of my journal quote from weeks ago. "If defending myself ruins your lies, maybe you should have built them better," paired with ominous music and cherry-picked DMs from anonymous sources, implying I fabricated it all for attention. And then, as if that wasn't enough, they looped a distorted version of the Gala video again, cutting just before Lorene's comment about me not belonging in photos. The video had 67,000 views in under 4 hours. I stared at the screen, not blinking. I felt like I was watching someone peel back my skin and call it costume. I closed the laptop. Later that afternoon, Brenda called. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't offer platitudes. She just said, "I'm handling it." And she did. An hour later, she posted the full, unedited clip of the Gala prep to her profile. No captions, no cuts, just raw truth. You could hear Lorene saying it clearly. "Let's just not invite Kylie. It ruins the energy." And then my mother's laugh. "She wouldn't come anyway. She doesn't belong in pictures." The internet turned again. Aunt Cynthia followed up with a joint statement. Clear, direct, aligned with my timeline. She included screenshots of messages between her and my mom, verifying what I'd been saying all along. And then came the Lisbon publisher's post. "This work is based on documented first-hand testimony and verified communications. We stand behind Kylie's story." By nightfall, the hashtag #KylieExposed had vanished from trending. The original video had been flagged for misinformation. And for the first time, it felt like the fire wasn't at my feet, it was behind me. I sat on my bed, staring at my screen, wondering if I should say something. Make a final statement. Instead, I opened Instagram and posted an image of an old notebook. Torn edges. Coffee stain in the corner. My caption, "If I'm dramatic, it's because I finally stopped disappearing." No tags, no names, just the words. That night, a new message buzzed through. My mother. You got what you wanted. You win. No greeting, no punctuation, just that. I didn't reply. I blocked the number. The next morning, I took a long walk along the riverside. The breeze was crisp, gentle. I passed a woman pushing her daughter on a swing, the two of them laughing, big, unfiltered laughter that made other people smile, just listening. I stood still for a moment and whispered, "This is what it's supposed to feel like." Not performance, not defense, just peace. Then, as I turned the corner near the old bookstore I'd come to love, I saw it. My book cover, real, printed, sitting in the display window. Just one copy, propped up on a stand. I didn't cry, I didn't rush in, I just stood there and let it settle into my bones. This wasn't about them anymore. For the first time, I was proud, and I didn't need anyone's permission to feel it. The next few weeks passed like honey, slow, sticky, warm. Each day in Lisbon felt less like an escape and more like a choice I had finally allowed myself to make. My apartment in the Alfama district sat at the corner of a narrow, sloped street that echoed with the clang of ceramic coffee cups and soft fado music. I didn't need much, just a window with light, a desk that didn't wobble, and a kettle that whistled when it boiled. I worked part-time editing travel articles for a boutique magazine that catered to English-speaking tourists. The work wasn't flashy, but it gave me structure, and something to do with my words that didn't always come wrapped in memory. In the afternoons, I'd take slow walks through the local market. I learned the names of fruits I'd never eaten back home. I burned 3 pots of feijoada before finally getting it right. I joined a writing group that met every Thursday evening in a bookstore basement that smelled like paperbacks and fresh mint tea. We talked about tone, about character arcs, about how the real work of writing was just surviving your own voice. And then one day, while passing a corner bakery I'd wandered into a few times before, the woman behind the counter waved. "Bom dia, Kylie!" My name rolled off her tongue like it belonged there. I paused, blinking. She didn't know anything about Baton Rouge. She'd never met my mother, never seen Lorene's red carpet photos or heard whispers about family inheritances and fake signatures. But she knew me, and that small sweet moment, being seen without the weight of history, made my throat tighten. Some days, the past still knocked. I'd get emails forwarded from Brenda, usually from relatives trying to test the water. "Just wondering how you're doing. Your mom mentioned you the other day. She's processing." I didn't reply, but I didn't delete them either. Some nights I'd light a candle and reread old letters I'd written but never sent. Some were sharp, some were sad. Most ended the same way. Maybe one day this will make sense. The ache wasn't gone. It had just changed shape. Like scar tissue you forget about until the weather shifts, and there it is, tight and tender. April 5th came again. I woke up to golden light stretching across my sheets, and for once, it didn't feel like an ambush. I got dressed slowly, pulled on a soft blue sweater, and walked 3 blocks to a cafe I'd only just discovered the week before. They had cakes that looked like something out of a storybook. Too colorful, too sugary, too much. And I loved it. I picked the biggest cupcake in the case, pink icing, rainbow sprinkles, a tiny edible flower on top. The owner rang me up and asked if I needed a bag. I shook my head. I wanted to carry it. At a nearby table I sat down, pulled a blank card from my purse and wrote, "To the girl who waited too long for someone else to celebrate her." I placed it next to the cupcake, lit a candle, and watched the flame dance. "This year," I whispered, "you didn't need them. No photos, no posts, just presents." That afternoon, a box arrived from my publisher. Inside, the first printed copy of my book. There was a handwritten note from Paula taped to the inside cover. "You made space. Now let others find theirs too." I flipped to the dedication page, for the kids with cupcakes and cards who kept waiting for next year. I placed the book on my tiny balcony table and lit another candle. Nearby, I'd hung Brenda's framed letter, the one she found from when I was 15. For years, I'd waited for someone to say it for me, to fight for me, to choose me. Now I understood. Some years, you wait for someone to show up with a cake. This year, I baked my own peace. Sometimes healing doesn't arrive in the form of an apology. Sometimes it arrives in the stillness that follows after you finally stop waiting for one. After all the pleading, the explaining, the hoping that someone might see your pain the way you do, what's left is silence. And in that silence, something surprising begins to grow. Space. Space to breathe, space to feel without judgment, space to rebuild yourself piece by piece without needing someone else to validate your worth. If there's one hard-earned truth I've taken from all of this, it's that peace isn't something you stumble upon. It's not gifted. It's built, slowly, deliberately, brick by brick. Sometimes with boundaries that shake people, sometimes with the kind of courage that feels like fear at first, and sometimes it's built by making one of the most difficult decisions of all, choosing yourself, especially when no one else does. Family isn't always safe. Love isn't always balanced. And the hardest lesson of all, closure doesn't always come in a neat package with answers and mutual understanding. Often it doesn't come from them. It comes from you. From the moment you stop chasing clarity from someone who refuses to give it. From the moment you realize that maybe you don't need their explanation to move on. Maybe what you really need is your own permission to let go. So, to the ones who feel like ghosts in their own homes, to those who were told they were too much for feeling what others were too afraid to face, you're not overreacting. You're not broken. You're just no longer silent. And that's not a flaw. That's growth. That's the beginning of you stepping into your voice again. It's not easy. Some days it still stings. Some nights the silence is louder than the shouting used to be. But in that silence, something else lives too. Possibility. The possibility of rebuilding not just your life, but your identity outside of the pain. So I want to ask you, from one human to another, have you ever had to walk away, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself? Or maybe you're still standing in that heavy silence, wondering if it's worth it, wondering if you made the right call, or if you're just lost. If that's you, I have one question. What's the one thing you've done this year just for you, even if it was small, that made you feel whole? Even for a moment. Share it in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from, or just drop a 1 if this story landed somewhere in your chest. I see you. You're not alone in this. And if you saw a reflection of yourself in this story, don't forget to subscribe. Stick around. Because the next story, it might sound a lot like yours. And you deserve to be heard. Sometimes the most powerful stories aren't the ones we're told. They're the ones we finally give ourselves permission to tell.